Good morning and welcome everybody to the WA Police Force Commissioner's Morning Tea with African Community Leaders for 2023. My name is Anthony Robertson. I'm the Strategic Communications Officer of the Media and Corporate Communications branch of the WA Police Force. I'll be your Master of Ceremonies this morning. We begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and their continuing connection to the land, sea and community. We pay respect to them and their culture, and to elders past, present and emerging. I'd like to welcome and introduce our officiants for this morning. WA Police Commissioner Kolawole, Executive Director Frank Pasquale, from Operations Support, Assistant Commissioner Peter Healy and Acting Commander Mark Longman, from Community Engagement Division, Acting Superintendent Mick Kelly, CEO of Savannah Legal and member of Police African Leaders Advisory Meeting, Louis and Christopher, Whadjuk Noongar Elder Kevin Fitzgerald, Pastor Ernest Digway from the Redeemed Christian Church of God, and students from Rehoboth Secondary College and Dianella Secondary College. I want to assure you this is a relaxed format today, and the idea is for you all to have a chance to meet and speak informally while enjoying some morning tea, as we have been. To clear up some housekeeping matters, the bathroom facilities located through the doors to my right, just near the registration area when you're coming in. And in the case of an emergency, I do have a little text that was sent to me here a short time ago. If a fire is alerted, an initial alarm will be activated. So you hear a beep, beep, please prepare to evacuate. Second alarm is activated, you'll hear a whoop, whoop, whoop. Please evacuate to the closest exit and evacuation point. And really just follow the instructions of the staff here at the Convention Centre and the fire wardens. And again, we've put a few blue shirts, so these guys should know their way around the evacuation procedure. After our presentations, you are encouraged to speak with your local police officers and share your experiences in the room next door where we just were. We've especially set it up for the morning tea facilities. We'll be using a colour-coded system to identify your local officers, and I'll explain that a little later. Let's start the proceedings by welcoming to the podium Whadjuk Noongar Elder Kevin Fitzgerald to perform the Welcome to Country.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? I had a terrific day this morning. I couldn't find a parking place. There were roadworks everywhere. And I thought, maybe I should speed and get pulled up and I could leave the car there. But then I thought, no, I better not. I've got to be respectable and civil. To all the police force this morning, we welcome you. Good to see you all again. And of course, the African community. Great to see you. You know, we got grandkids in Africa, down in Kenya, Nairobi. And it was all about my daughter making friends to this African girl. And they were like sisters all the time. My daughter's been there 8 times now. So we do know a little bit about the country. We're going to Nairobi after Christmas this year and to meet some of the people we know, and we enjoy them and those little fellas there. And so this morning I say, Kayu Wanju, Product Whadjuk Noongar. Ngan Kevin, Ngan Whadjuk Noongar Maman, Ngan Europe, and Wanju Noongar. Kayu, Product Noongar Whadjuk. Ijanala Ward Whadjuk, Kura. What I've said this morning is I welcome you to this beautiful land of the Whadjuk people. And we share this with all our nations, with all our people. You know, when I was growing up a little kid, we never that many people here. We only have Noongar, English, a few Afghans with their camels, and a few Chinese people. Today we are a multicultural society, and you know what that means? You could have a lot of desire to eat different food. And it's at the day when we say welcome to country is a respectable event. It's respectable in every way. It doesn't matter with our culture, our language, where we come from, who we are, not even what clothes we wear. We are all welcome, because there's no guilt or no shame when we say welcome. We welcome people from the heart, and we share this country with everybody. And you know, it's a wonderful thing to see many nations here. Yes, I've got a few African friends around the place, and I actually attend a African church. So you know, it's fantastic to me. And I'm already, I meet a lot of policemen too, so it's good. So this morning we say welcome. This is the land of the Wajak people. This is our history. This is our Dreamtime story. And of course, we've been here since the beginning of time. And you cannot make a time or when, but we're still here. And I'm one of those people who continued that tradition. Yeah, we look after land, we look after our people. And of course, today, we had so much country. The Noongar people live in what we call the southwest of the Noongars come from the southwest, from Durian Bay around to Meriden, Esperance, all around back to the Cape. And we live there, and we don't go anywhere. Many of our people travel now, but we always come back to that place, and it means something to us. You know, we don't own the land. We believe the land owns us, and we've got to look after it. It's like our mum. So this morning we say, Kaya Wanju Kwabadak Wajak Noongar Busha. Have a wonderful day, have a fantastic day, and this is another day that you could enjoy yourself and go on and enjoy what we're doing today. I say, Kayu, thank you very much.
Together as a community to make sure that we're all safe, our young people are safe, our parents and all our family are safe, and that we work together to try and identify and find solutions for all the horrible problems that are out there in our community. But firstly, I'd also like to welcome the Commissioner, Mr. Blanche, DC, Mr. Adams, all the great people I've just met in a room just to the side where we've talked about some problems that are facing, obviously, the African community and some of the issues that they're having in relation to relationships with WA Police and the greater community in Western Australia. But I think we had a really good meeting, and the road forward is really exciting, and we're going to be meeting more often and regularly to try and go through those problems and work together as a team. But I thank you all for coming this morning, and I thank Koollife for bringing this all together. So all the African community members, all the WA Police Force members that are here today, anyone else that I may have missed, please feel welcome. I think it's a really exciting time. It's been a bit of a while since we've all got together in a forum like this to meet and try and work through, to get to know each other, work through problems, to find solutions, to have a really good relationship together as a team where we can hopefully make and contribute to a greater and safer Western Australia, and particularly look after our young people that are coming through the ranks and entering into our community, into our workforce, into our studies and community greater to work, and so we can be together as one. I hope that we all meet and have good chat after this formal event, because it's a good hour to get to know each other, and I'm keen to meet you all because I've been tied up in that room next door to meet all the other great people in the audience. So all the best, thank you for coming, and I think we'll have a great day today. Thank you.
I will say today is about district level engagement, and you can see a number of blue shirts scattered throughout the room. And can I thank Community Engagement Division for putting today on, because today is a day for you to reach out to the local police in your area in particular, because you need that first port of call. You need the trust, you need to know that person's face from the police, and you need to know that if you go there, something will happen. They will take you seriously and they will act upon what you are saying. Those people are in this room. So please reach out during our morning tea period, because they are under clear understanding. And I only have to point to this banner behind me, excuse me for those that can't see it over there. But it does talk about our values, and our values aren't just something that sits on a banner. These values mean something to me. I have to live them. All police have to live these values. You don't come into the police force unless you accept that these are the values you live by. If you can demonstrate to me that our police are not doing that, that is my job to do. But I'm confident that most of our police officers also live by these values. I don't want to be biased in relation to policing performance, but we do have the highest community satisfaction across the entire country as a police officer. But we have to continue working towards that. We always have to work towards that. So this is a big ask from me to offer that hand of trust and confidence. Put us to the test. We've got to prove ourselves to you, but we can't prove ourselves unless you ask for help or ask for assistance and ask for support. Now, from some of the questions you had around data, we would love to share our data. In fact, we've been on a huge journey of collecting data and trying to understand our data. So that is something that, the first thing I will say, we will share our data because it's very relevant to what areas need support and what don't. But we will also work side by side with you to go to government support agencies, other government departments and say, we think this is a solution. This will help get ahead of the problem. Because I think once it's just police and community and not those other areas, we're too far down the stream. As the Commissioner of Young Children said the other day, you're just funding the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And we don't want to be that cohort. We want to be someone that gets ahead of the problem. And if we see a young child in particular starting to go wayward in our community, of any background, that's where community have to jump in with the support services and redirect. Because as you quite rightly point out, it's too late once you have a criminal record that's as long as your arm, because their careers are significantly affected and their choices and opportunity in life are significantly affected. Young Offenders Act, the law, and let's not forget one thing, we are a state that is bound by law. We are a police force that follows the law. Where that is not evident, again, we will deal with that because we do not accept being outside of the law as a police force. But we are dedicated under the Young Offenders Act to divert first-time offenders so they do not receive those records. Here's the challenge for us under those circumstances when you divert a young person. We use this phrase a lot in policing. Divert to what? What is available to that child to take them somewhere away from the pathway that they're on? And I think they're the things that we have to focus on. Because we can capture someone in their first offence and say we can give you a diversion under law to get support and divert that pathway. We should all be very clear on what that is, how that's going to work, and how that child receives a wraparound service. And that's the support that I need from you. Ideas, pathways, options. If we get that, we'll have a highly successful strategy going forward, and I know it will work. Can I address the senior leaders in the room of the community? Your voice is very strong. Your voice is very strong. Because you can shape the way police. And that may seem like a foreign concept sometimes, given your own experiences and history. But we take very seriously our community-based policing model. Don't mistake those words for a commissioner that is not hard on crime. If there are serious crimes in our community, we're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it very quickly. But what does that mean generally? That means we take someone from a criminal offence location and we take them into a justice system. That is our role. Senior leaders in this room, the community voices, should happen at either end of that circumstance. Our behaviour should be under scrutiny, and it is. What happens in the justice system? What happens in the home and beforehand? Those two are the critical areas about the future of our young people. And I will work with you to give you the data, our experiences, combined with your knowledge, experiences, cultural experiences about how we can address those two ends of the spectrum, because I think that's the part that keeps getting overlooked. Everyone says that arrest was wrong. Well, it may be, and we will deal with it. But why was there an arrest, and how did the justice system deal with the end result? And I think that's the part that gets missed. I want to finish on what I started with. Most of our community is wonderful in Western Australia. It's full of opportunity. You in this room are great examples of it. Police shouldn't be the topic of conversation in a community that has intelligence, education, employment, success, arts, music, food. I'm on a diet, but I usually love food. These are the things that our community is made of, and not division, and not crime. None of those things should even exist in a community. So our job is to stamp it out by focusing on the good things that we have in Western Australia. I love this state. I love policing, but I love, most importantly, working with community to achieve those great things for this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can I just correct an oversight? I know you wouldn't have minded.
Well, thank you all. Certainly, Torino guys, musicians, well done. Thank you very much. Certainly, as someone with no rhythm, no danceability whatsoever, I'm very envious of your talents. So thank you all. Kevin, thank you for welcome to country. Always a pleasure to have you here. I've seen you many times in the past few weeks, so it's always a wonderful thing to see. Welcome to you all, or I will say it hopefully correctly, Jumbo. Lewis, you are a genius. Some of the things you said resonated very much with me, as we spoke about in the room prior to this. Very relevant parts to what I'm about to talk about, and I hope to answer some of those questions that you and others have in the crowd today. Dr. Umale, thank you for all the work you have been doing on behalf of Western Australia Police with the African Australian community. Clearly from their feedback today, your efforts have been extraordinary, so thank you. And it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge Don Manuel Smith for many years working with the African Australian community. Leading up to COVID, and I'll talk about COVID in a minute, but thank you for the effort that you have put in also. To all the distinguished guests, I don't want to name you all because we could be here for some time, and I'm sure you'd rather hear what I have to say as Police Commissioner about how we can always walk forward in our relationship together. Now, firstly in the room, hands up anyone who's under 18. Anyone? Are you? I reckon they deserve a round of applause. And I'll tell you why. Because you are the most important people in the room today. The youth of tomorrow, us oldies, we're done, right? It's over for us, and we've got to make it better for you. And I think that's the important message for me today. How do we help our youth, from whatever culture, from whatever country, from whatever background, make Australia, make Western Australia a better place for all of us to live in? And I think that's the key of unification that we must work on every day. Not just today when we have a conversation and we have some food together, but we keep working at it. Because there are two factors that aren't going to leave us. And that is, WA police are going to be around in Western Australia for a long time. We've been here for 193 odd years, we're going to be around for centuries more perhaps. And the African Australian community is going to be around in Western Australia for a long, long time as well. So we're both here, we both may as well work on it and get it right. And I think we've made a long road into doing that, but there's always improvement. The police strategic framework talks about being an exceptional police force for our community. And what I say to our senior police in particular is, we can't reach that. You can't reach the goal of exceptional. But you should always be trying. And can I just also acknowledge one other thing, Dr. Umle, you prepared a beautiful speech here. And those of you who know me well enough, I normally just go straight off the script and start talking about other things, because I like to speak from the heart. I think you'd rather appreciate that, but I say, what a well-crafted speech here, and I will touch on some key points. And firstly, I do want to talk about COVID. It probably stopped us from coming together. It did stop us from coming together. We were on a very good journey, and I mentioned some of the key people before who were working really hard to improve our relationships. But COVID stopped the community, and it stopped us from being and working together so we can have better outcomes. Now, sadly, that was a downside to what COVID brought the community, the world. But can I thank the leaders in the room in particular for translating a lot of, not in a language sense, even in a cultural sense, to your communities who are in our state about how to get through COVID and how to protect yourselves and your families and what all the rules meant. At some point, I think we were signing 1,000 odd directions about what we could and couldn't do, and you may remember some of those times, whether you could eat standing up or sitting down, and how much of a gap you could have a dance. And I know that affected many of you. It certainly didn't affect me because I wasn't dancing. But these were serious times, and I do want to thank your leadership in particular, because you were able to work with your communities and say, hey, we need to get through this together. And we did. And I think I'm proud to say, as a West Australian community, we really made a difference to the health and safety of our community. So I think you should give yourselves a round of applause. Now, why is today important? Today's important because we need to have honest conversations as well about what's working and what isn't. And as Police Commissioner, I've got to use my best assets, and they are my ears, to listen to you about what you and your community is experiencing across the state. Because we do police Western Australia, we police it across the state, not just in Perth. But if you draw a diagonal line, it's roughly 2,500 kilometres, which is pretty damn big. And it's quite a challenge for 7,000, 8,000 police officers to police well. So what does it take to police a state like Western Australia? Anyone has a guess? A community that works with us, and we respect them, they respect us, and we work together and have trust. Without that, as Commissioner, I cannot police Western Australia. I need your support, I need your advice and guidance, and I need your help. And Lewis, what resonated with me in particular, firstly with your speech, was your experience of police in a brutal sense. And that saddens me, because I do know there are police around the world, and there are instances in our own history here in Western Australia of brutality against our communities. That can never happen going forward in Western Australia. We're not that police force. And I want to make sure that we're all very clear on this, and you can hear it from me as Commissioner. I do not tolerate racism. I do not tolerate discrimination, sexual harassment, behaviours like that in my police force. I will call it out, and I will remove those officers who behave that way. I also agree with you that 99% of our police officers are doing their very best to do the right thing. In fact, we are the only, at the moment, agency that wears a camera on our chest every time we interact with members of the public. So that transparency and that confidence and that assurance that we are doing the right thing is available to the judiciary, our oversight bodies, members of the public, to say, are police interacting correctly? We can always get better, we can always improve. And I would much rather take an education approach to officers who get it wrong, particularly from cultural aspects and getting it wrong. That's where our engagement is important, because you can say, this is not how you deal with someone from an African background, because that will just make them worse or offend them. And we can educate our officers, and that is our constant improvement. It is a challenge for our officers as society becomes more multicultural, because there are many communities with different cultures, with different ways of dealing with it. And sometimes, and many of us in here today who are wearing blue shirts have felt that, because sometimes we're 20 years old and we're on our first day of policing, and the expectation, the proper expectation from the community, is that we know everything. often say to our recruiters, do you feel like you know everything and you're ready to go tomorrow? And they all say, no, I know nothing. And I say, well, usually it's be respectful and you'll work with community to become excellent police. Now, I'm going to give you all a task in the room, particularly those African Australian leaders. The challenge is to recruit as many people into the Western Australia Police Force. I know you want your children to be doctors and engineers and scientists and make lots of money perhaps in the mining industry, but policing is a noble job and it's something we welcome all communities to. And if you want a true representation of your community in your police force, we must have representatives from across the world in our police force. And we already do. I'm pleased to say the whole community in particular has really stepped up and supported police. As you said, we've supported police. And we are having lots of applications, and we do encourage that because I know, even with the Aboriginal community, when you see someone with your background, there is an instant connection, an instant cultural connection, and you can probably explain your situation even better. But what it also does when we have police officers from different backgrounds is that it permeates through the police force, and they get to witness that communication and that connection. And I think you all know that. But that's why it does take, from your experience and from other experiences in the room, about believing police can be quite brutal and offensive to you, to where we are today, where we're hoping you can change your views and encourage your young people to join the police as a very noble career, and some of the experiences that they will have across this state. I know sometimes that's a really big ask, and we struggle with a lot of different cultures in Australia to join policing. But in my true view as Commissioner, this is the only way. This is the only way that we can continue engaging closer with very different cultures sometimes, albeit in the one big pot that we call Australia. Certainly, and again, I feel like I'm repeating everything Lewis said because he got in first, but I'll say it again. The African Australian community, like all communities in Australia, are overwhelmingly great, good people. I don't have to tell you this. Now, I'll leave media and social media aside for a minute. They're in universities, they're in high-paying jobs, they're in schools, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're police. Like all communities, you're doing a wonderful job. And not only that, you are bringing a culture into Australia that is filled with colour, family, food, beauty. Now, what a wonderful, rich tapestry for us to be a part of on a daily basis. And I think that's the important message that keeps getting lost in a couple of individuals. Let's be honest, we're talking about a very small percentage. Let me get started on data in a minute, because you hit on my favourite subject. And it's something I'm quite passionate about, because your community is performing exceptional. Exceptional. It's difficult, I know. I'm married into a multicultural family. To come here with language skills as English as a second language and integrate and become successful. I think that speaks to a couple of things. Your resilience, but also the opportunity that is available to you and your family and your young people in Australia to do whatever they want to do. So the moment that racism steps in, or bad behaviour steps in, we've all got to collectively stamp it out. Now, I have a very powerful role in this state as Commissioner of Police. So I've got to take a front seat on that and a decision-making seat and deal with it quickly. But unless you tell me when, where, how, who, I cannot deal with it. You have to trust me. Now, trust doesn't come because I stand here and say, trust me. Trust comes over time when I take actions because you have shown me your confidence and said, could you do something about this? This is wrong. And we will work on that together. So I give you my commitment. Let's do something about it. Got examples, I will deal with it. That is my 100% commitment. But I don't want to make this a negative speech about a few individuals doing the wrong thing. Many of our young people across many, many cultures, most of those kids are really good. Even sometimes the kids are getting into trouble with the police are really, really good. There's often 1, 2 or 3, it's as little as that, who aren't good people in any community, and they lead others astray. And this is where community becomes so important for police. I was probably 18 before I met my first police officer. That's because I got my driver's license and I couldn't help myself. But the reality is most of our kids should never meet police unless it's in a positive sense, because they have good community, good family, good role models, good direction. But not everyone has that available to them. And I think that's our collective effort. How do we get ahead of that negative interaction with police? I hope every interaction with police is a positive one. But if we try to avoid policing interaction altogether as a youth, that should be our target. Because of good community, because of support we needed, all of the things you spoke about. And giving people the guiding light to take the opportunity that presents to them in Western Australia. Take it by the bull by the horns and start contributing to the society, as I know many, many already do. So we're talking about very few people, very few young people who just need extra guidance and support, where maybe their own family sometimes cannot give it. And we know the prevalence in our community of mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence. That's not unique to any one community. It is prevalent across the state where we see dysfunction. Now, pleasingly in Western Australia, and this is my issue sometimes with social media and comments, over the last 20 years, property crime is the lowest ever. Assaults is the lowest, or one of the lowest. It's had some dips, but primarily a lot lower than early 2000s. Stealing of cars, stealing in shops, all very, very low. This is a very safe state. Sometimes you read the paper and go, that can't be right, because it's been talked about all the time. But it's not. This is a safe place. And there are very few people causing harm to others. The only metric that has gone up significantly in the last 20 years is family domestic violence. We do not police in people's homes. We cannot do high visibility patrols inside your bedroom and around yours. And this is a perfect example of why police are not the answer. We can provide data, we can provide support, but community and police and government and support agencies must get ahead of that curve. What do people need for support before a blue shirt even turns up? That's what I would love to work with all of you on. How do we get ahead of the problem? And the only time I would want our young people to see police is when they're handing in their application to join the Western Australia Police Force. This is a really important part to me and my role as Commissioner. In the past, everyone talks about more police, what are you doing, where are you? That is the wrong conversation to be had. It should be about why did they get to where they are. And I think if you can help me understand why those very few people are where they are, then we can go and work together with the agencies, the support services, the government, to say these are the things that we need to address for this particular cohort. And I just want to reinforce, we're talking about a very small number of people. Most of your community, our community, don't need help from us or those services, because the opportunity is in Western Australia to be better, to contribute to society, and in some cases some people make lots of money, which clearly is quite extraordinary in WA.
I'm surprised as a person who grew up in the refugee camp and have dealt with the police that a lot of us are still sitting here in the presence of the police. Our experiences back home, at least most of us with the police, are brutal. Once you see a police coming to your house, you have to find a place where you can hide. But I'm very grateful that we all have met here today in peace and in trying to find a solution to some of the problems within our communities as African. There is an African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. However, a child who does not belong to that village will burn the village down. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Louis Morris Christopher, a member of Police African Leaders Advisory Committee, and also representing SALI, the Society of African Lawyers Association Incorporation in the state of Western Australia. I'm here in the capacity of representing SALI, the Society of African Australian Lawyers, and also in my own capacity as a legal practitioner director of Savannah Legal. May I acknowledge and pay my respect to the Indigenous Australians and the Torres Strait Islanders, ancestors of this great nation. Their spirits and legacy, I pay my deepest respect to their past elders, present, emerging, their continuing connection to the land upon which we gather here today, waters and communities. I am equally and profoundly indebted to the Police Commissioner for his generous time today and meeting members of the African leaders and giving us his listening ear to tell him our problems, our experiences with the WA police and interactions. Thank you, the Deputy Commissioner, for your attendance. Men and women in blue uniform, we thank you for the service you provide to our community and for all keeping us safe as members of the Western Australian community, not only the African community. We thank you for your service and all the things that you do for our community. Furthermore, I recognize the presence of Society of African Australian Lawyers Incorporation, their leaders. I recognize the presence of Organization of African Communities, OAC. I recognize the presence of many members and leaders of African communities, and of course, not forgetting our Indigenous Australian in the elder who have given us a welcome to the country. It is admirable how from the team from the Community Engagement Division have been engaging, especially our African brother, Dr. Omule, for being supportive to attending to African issues, especially via African Leaders Advisory Committee. Mr. Omule and Sergeant Craig, whom I've not seen here, we thank you for your support and always giving us a venue to listen to. I know Dr. Omule would not like me to highlight some of the achievements since establishing the African Leaders Advisory Committee. It is consequent to know that African Leaders Advisory Committee have made some few achievements but also significant. Among those, it conducted constructive and successful meetings pertaining issues concerning young African people involved in criminal activities, and we are still working on this and had a robust conversation today which will continue after the formal gathering. There were diversity trainings at WA Police Academy, which we had a great feedback on how trainings can be responsive to African cultural issues. Among other achievements was a successful WA Police Career African Information Session conducted in Judula, which event was also broadcasted to other Africans who are not within WA on FECA Radio, which is one of our community radio, assisting us with disseminating information in relation to matters concerning our communities. We still have, there was a visit to PERTH Police Command Center in Northbridge to appreciate how CCTV technology enhances policing in the CPD, an opportunity to learn about Aboriginal Noongar Patrol outreach services, model in operation. We plan to undergo a study on what model can work and suit us as Africans. Finally, we had the Ellenbrook African Youth Project. The leaders were involved in the onset, wanting to know the problems before the problems that are causing our youth to commit crimes, and this project is still ongoing. Once it's completed, we'll be able to get to the bottom of why some of our youth, but not all, are involved in criminal activities. I'm forgetting to mention, most importantly, and this is credit to WA Police and the community engagement groups, Sergeant Craig, in his absentia, attended at West Perth to educate members of our community on FECA Radio on a program that we call Without Prejudice Discussion. We engage him with our lawyers so that we understand police perspective on some of the criminal matters, educate members of our community things to do with traffic, criminal offenses, police search, and many more. And this program is still continuous on days that Sergeant Craig Clark is available. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all aware of the reason why we are here, in case you might be wondering. Mr. Commissioner, we recognize many of the issues facing our young people of African backgrounds, their families, and those issues are complex. They cannot only be resolved by us as African. It requires involvement of all of us, including the WA Police. I believe we can work together. Let it be crystal clear that the African community is behind your leadership, Mr. Commissioner. I've already fallen in love with you this morning, but not the other love. We acknowledge the alleged rise of our youth involving in criminal activities. This has always been a matter of grave concern to us as members of African community. As leaders, we believe that we can play a part in fighting crimes, not only in the African community, but in communities where we belong and in the suburbs where we live, and get a solution to particularly some of the problems our young people are involved in. We also believe preventing crimes and making our communities safer is a priority. It is a collective priority of all of us. We are here to make a positive difference, Mr. Commissioner, and work collaboratively and in good faith with the members of the Western Australian Police to succeed in keeping our community safe. We also want to support mainly different district police officers to mitigate youth crimes in their districts. While majority of our youth are law-abiding and our major concern are the very few are failing or falling through the cracks that we need to attend to. There is a saying that it is better to tackle the reasons why the youth offend than to wait until they offend and then try to correct them. It would have been too late. Many of them would have had a colorful criminal records. They would not have no employment opportunities, and the fate of us as Africans here will be doomed. We become homeless, and we become a laughing stock of the community of our society. The question we are asking here today are, what is making our young people commit crimes? Is it a poverty or is illiteracy? Is it parents' problems at home? Are they being targeted or they are just noise makers? What is it? Or maybe it is trauma or lack of employment. We don't know, you don't know. But we are here to find why. Or if not today, at least this should be a starting point for us to go back home and do some assignments and come back with a constructive feedback. Addressing crimes and these things that I've mentioned that cause youth to get involved in criminal activity requires our collective effort. And I believe that's the reason why we are here today. It is very essential, Mr. Commissioner, but there is a fundamental issues that for us to understand why our youth commit crimes and what percentage of our youth commit crimes, what sort of crimes, how long have they been in prison for, and for all the things that are required as a community for us to analyze and be able to understand this is what we need to do. We lack accurate data to analyze what proportion and percentage of our young people enter justice system, whether it is in a rise or not. And we suggest that perhaps granting members of the African community data, a raw data to understand what our youth are doing out there. Because most of us are here, our youth are doing this and that, we don't know what offenses. Are they violent offenses? Are they stealing? Are they burglaries? Are they domestic violence? And so forth. For us to understand that, we require a data from all the stakeholders. And I believe the starting point will be the Western Australian Police. As I say, this request will aid our understanding of the pervasive nature of our young people committing crimes in our communities. Based on my experience, Mr. Commissioner, and the experiences of other African lawyers here today, we have been dealing with people of African origin in representing them in their legal issues. There is a general consensus within the African communities that the WA police have still a long way in understanding African culture, essentially when involving young people. and often those misunderstandings lead to conflicts between police and the people of African background. When I talk about cultural understanding in our culture, when you are doing a search, or I know here we have to do searches and things like that. You cannot touch a woman behind that is not your wife. You cannot touch their breast. I know generally even here that would be indecent dealing with a person. But there are some cultural things that our women, when search are being done or conducted, that need to be thought, or WA police need to have an understanding of. That way, if we come into contact with female members of our communities, how we can be able to deal with them. They will not be refusing your search or patting them down, but that there are reasons why they might say, look, you cannot touch me here, or you cannot touch me there. We need to address those, and I believe through education and cultural awareness, such practices can be corrected. In my presentation, Mr. Commissioner, I recommend some of the following things, perhaps, if the will requires to be done. Encourage funding more research projects to understand these issues in depth, with the aim to develop and implement appropriate prevention and intervention programs within our community. We would also like to have the African Community Leaders Advisory Committee, OAC, SALI, and other African organizations with adequate funding and resources. Adequate funding and resources will enable development and implementation of culturally responsive project and intervention programs, in my view. Recommendation 2, that there is need to invest in community centers. Our young people are very talented. When they perform well, the likes of Peter Ball, the likes of those who play AFL and the likes, I'm even forgetting our old boys' names. You know, they are called Australians, but when they commit crimes, they are Africans. But I believe when we have these community centers, it can develop, help provide an avenue for our young people to develop the much required talent that they have hidden in them. So I also recommend that there is need for involving the broader African community, not just an organization, in determining what's the best outcome might be, not simply us as a community.
One, two.